Peace Daniels was the only daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Daniels, a humble family living in a small part of the city. Their home was simple, a two-room house with a leaking roof and cracked walls. Her father, once a taxi driver, had stopped working due to an illness that weakened his legs. Her mother sold vegetables and pepper in the open market. They didn't have much, but Peace never complained. She was soft-spoken, respectful, and beautiful in a quiet way. Her skin was dark and smooth like evening clay after rain. She always tied her hair in a simple bun and wore long gowns her mother made from leftover fabrics. She didn't paint her face or wear earrings. She believed in modesty and grace. Peace had just finished secondary school and was hoping to gain admission to study nursing. She loved helping people and often dreamed of wearing a white uniform, working in a clean hospital where her mother wouldn't have to suffer anymore. Her life was peaceful until Henry Cole crossed her path. Henry was the only son of Mr. Cole, a wealthy businessman known across the city. They owned several supermarkets and rented apartments. Henry had returned from abroad a few months earlier, driving his father's cars and wearing fine clothes. He always smelled of expensive perfume, his hair neatly trimmed and his shoes shining like mirrors. The first time he saw Peace was one hot afternoon near the market. She was returning from the borehole, balancing a bucket of water on her head, her blue gown clinging to her body from the heat. Sweat glistened on her forehead. She walked quietly, unaware of the attention she drew. Henry was inside his black SUV, talking on the phone when he caught sight of her. His words trailed off. For a moment, he just watched her, the way she walked, the calmness in her eyes. "Who's that girl?" he asked one of his friends sitting beside him. "That's Daniel's daughter," the friend replied with a small laugh. "The taxi driver's child. Don't waste your time, Henry. She's not your type." But Henry smiled slowly. "Then I'll make her my type." From that day, he began driving through her street. At first, he pretended to be passing by. Sometimes, he stopped to greet neighbors or ask silly questions about the road. But everyone knew he wasn't there for them. His eyes always searched for Peace. She noticed him, of course. His car, his smile, the way he looked at her. But she avoided his attention. Peace was not the kind of girl to talk to strange men, especially rich ones. One afternoon, when she came out to sweep the compound, Henry stopped his car right in front of her gate. He stepped out, wearing a crisp white shirt and black trousers. His wristwatch glittered under the sun. "Good afternoon," he said politely, leaning slightly forward. Peace looked up, her broom still in hand. "Good afternoon, sir. I've been seeing you often," he continued, smiling. "You must live around here." She nodded shyly. "Yes, sir." He stretched out his hand. "I'm Henry." She didn't take it. "Okay, sir. I need to finish sweeping," she said softly and turned away. Henry was surprised. He wasn't used to being ignored. Every other girl he met smiled eagerly and tried to please him. But this one, she simply walked away. That rejection did something to him. From that moment, Henry swore to himself that he would win her heart, no matter what it took. He started bringing gifts, fruits, new slippers, sometimes chocolates. She refused them all. He sent notes through children. She tore them up. Still, he didn't stop. "Peace," he said one day, standing by her gate. "Why do you hate me so much?" She looked him straight in the eye. "I don't hate you, sir. I just don't want trouble. Please stop coming here." Henry laughed softly, pretending to be hurt. "You think I'm a troublemaker? I'm just a man who saw someone special. You don't know what you've done to my heart." Peace ignored him, but he didn't stop. Every evening, he parked near the big mango tree, waiting for her to come out. Sometimes he greeted her mother politely, pretending to buy vegetables just so he could see Peace's face. His persistence became the talk of the neighborhood. Some people admired him for chasing a poor girl. Others laughed, saying, "Let's see how long he'll last." But Henry was stubborn. He wasn't chasing Peace because he loved her. He was doing it because she said no. He told his friends proudly, "She'll come to me. I'll make her mine. I just need time." And slowly, with every sweet word and false promise, he began to break the walls around her heart, pretending to be patient, pretending to care, while inside, he smiled at how easily she trusted his lies. Peace didn't know that the man who swore to love her was the same man who planned to destroy her peace. The days turned into weeks, and Henry's persistence grew stronger. Every afternoon, his shiny car appeared somewhere near the Daniels compound. He always had a reason to stop, to greet, to ask for directions, or to pretend he was waiting for someone. But everyone knew he was waiting for peace. He watched her closely each time she returned from the market or the borehole, her neat wrapper tied around her waist, her face glowing with quiet strength. He found her simplicity strange, yet it pulled him in. Sometimes he offered to help carry her bucket of water or her mother's baskets of vegetables, but peace still kept her distance. "No, sir, thank you," she always said politely. But one evening, when she came home from the market and found him sitting quietly on the broken bench outside their gate, she stopped. His eyes were tired. His voice was softer this time. "Peace," he said slowly. "I know you don't trust me, but I'm not a bad man. I just want a chance to prove I care." She looked at him, unsure what to say. "Sir, I'm not used to men like you. I don't want any trouble, please." He smiled faintly. "Why do you think love is trouble?" She didn't answer. She simply turned and went inside. But from that night, something in her heart began to stir. Not love, but confusion. Inside the house, her parents had started noticing everything. Her mother often saw the same car parked by the road and would glance through the window with worry. One evening, as Peace washed plates outside, Mrs. Daniels called her gently. "My daughter, come and sit down." Peace wiped her hands and sat on the small wooden chair beside her. Her mother sighed deeply before speaking. "I've been seeing that young man who drives the silver car." "Who is he?" Peace looked down. "He said his name is Henry, Ma." "Henry?" Her mother frowned. "The same Henry that is Mr. Cole's son? The rich man's child?" Peace nodded quietly. Mrs. Daniels shook her head. "My daughter, be very careful. Rich men's sons are like the wind. They come with promises and leave with tears. You are not in his world, Peace. Don't let him fool you." Peace stayed silent, her heart heavy. Later that night, her father, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, spoke too. His voice was deep and tired. "Peace," he said. "I may not be rich, but I've lived long enough to know what trouble looks like. That boy's family is too high for us. If he truly loves you, he will come with his parents, not with secret visits." Peace nodded respectfully. "Yes, Papa." But in her heart, she wasn't sure what to believe. Henry's words sounded so sweet, so sincere. He often said, "Don't listen to what people say about me. I'm not like other rich men." Her parents' warnings became like small voices in the wind, heard but not followed. One afternoon, Henry returned again. This time he came on foot. He stood at her gate with a flower in his hand, his white shirt tucked neatly, his shoes polished. "Peace," he called softly. "I just want 5 minutes of your time. Please." She hesitated, then slowly walked toward him. He smiled, seeing her close enough for the first time without fear. "I'm not playing with your feelings," he began. "You think I'm one of those rich men who make promises and disappear. But you're wrong. I'm not like them." "Then why are you doing this?" she asked gently. "Your people will never accept me." Henry sighed and lowered his voice. "Let me worry about that. All I know is that I can't stop thinking about you. If I have to fight my family to prove I love you, I will." Peace looked away, unsure what to say. His words sounded brave and dangerous. From the window, Mrs. Daniels watched everything, her chest tightening. She whispered softly, "Oh Lord, don't let my daughter fall for the wrong man." But Henry had already made up his mind. He wanted peace, not out of love, but pride. He wanted to prove he could get the one girl who refused him. And from that moment, his lies grew deeper, his charm smoother, and his promises sweeter, until even Peace began to forget what her parents had said. Henry did not give up easily. Every time Peace refused to speak with him, he returned with something new, a reason to stay, a gift to offer, or a story that sounded too sincere to doubt. He was patient in his deceit, slow and calculated, like a man studying the heart he planned to break. Sometimes he came with baskets of fruit, saying softly, "I brought these for your mother." Other times he brought simple things, perfume, a small mirror, a new scarf. He made each gift seem innocent, yet every word behind it carried a hidden purpose. Peace tried to resist. For weeks, she avoided him, but he had a way of finding her. One afternoon, when she was coming home from the church youth meeting, she met him standing by the roadside. His shirt was tucked in neatly, his sleeves rolled, and a book was in his hand. "Peace," he said softly. "I waited because I wanted to see you. You don't have to run away from me. I just want to be your friend." She sighed, clutching her small handbag. "Sir, my parents don't like me talking to you." He smiled sadly. "Because they think I'm a bad person, right? But I'll prove them wrong. I'll never hurt you. I promise." Those words softened her heart. For the first time, she allowed herself to talk to him. They stood by the roadside that evening, talking about everything, about school, dreams, and the kind of life she wanted. Henry listened with gentle eyes and a charming smile. That night, Peace went home thinking about him. She didn't tell anyone, but something in her heart had shifted. A few days later, Mrs. Daniels noticed her daughter humming softly while cooking. "Peace," she said, narrowing her eyes, "you've been smiling too much these days. Tell me the truth. Are you still seeing that rich boy?" Peace's hands froze. "No, Mama, we only talk sometimes." Her mother sighed deeply and sat down. "My daughter, listen to me well. There's a kind of love that blinds before it burns. Those rich people's sons, they play with poor girls like toys. When they get what they want, they leave." "Mama, he's not like that," Peace said quietly. "He's kind." "Kind?" Her father's voice came from the doorway. He had been listening all along. "Peace, that boy's kindness is a rope. Once you take it, he'll pull you until you can't escape. You're too young to understand their tricks." But Peace had already closed her heart to their warnings. She wanted to believe Henry's gentleness, his smile, his promises. Henry began to visit more often, always pretending to respect her parents. He would greet her father politely and buy vegetables from her mother, making himself look harmless. Everyone in the neighborhood started talking. "He must really love her," one woman said. "Look at how humble he acts." But another replied, "Don't be fooled. Rich men don't chase poor girls for marriage. There's something he wants." Henry heard those words too, but he didn't care. He was winning. At night, he would send Peace small notes through the little children on the street. "You make my days brighter. I can't stop thinking about you. If I have to fight the world for you, I will." She hid those notes inside her Bible, reading them every night before sleep, smiling to herself. Her heart belonged to him completely now. Her mother saw the change. Peace no longer sang in the mornings. She no longer helped at the market or sat beside her father in the evenings. She was always looking at the road, waiting for Henry's car. "Peace," her mother said one morning. "Love is not about sweet words. It's about truth. Open your eyes before it's too late." But Peace didn't answer. Love had already blinded her. She believed Henry was different, gentle, sincere, and true. She didn't see that each word, each gift, and each promise was a string in the web he was weaving around her heart. The city had entered its rainy season. Each evening, the sky turned gray and the wind carried the smell of wet dust. Peace loved that time of the year. The sound of the rain on their old zinc roof always calmed her heart. But now, whenever the clouds gathered, she thought of Henry. She would look through the window, waiting to see if his car would appear before the rain began. And often it did. Sometimes he came holding an umbrella and 2 meat pies in a paper bag. Other times, he brought roasted corn or ground nuts from the roadside. His visits became part of her evenings, and slowly, her fear of him began to fade. "Peace," he would say softly. "You're not just another girl to me. I've met many, but none touched me like you did." She would blush and turn away. "Sir, please, don't say such things." "I'll keep saying them until you believe me," he replied, smiling. She tried to resist his charm, but it was like fighting the rain with bare hands. His voice was gentle, his manners polite, and his attention made her feel seen in a way she had never felt before. One evening, as she came home from the market with her mother, they met Henry standing by the gate, holding a bag. He greeted warmly. "Good evening, Mama." Mrs. Daniels frowned. "Evening. What are you doing here again?" "I just came to give Peace this," he said, raising the bag. "It's some groceries. Nothing expensive." Mrs. Daniels looked at him coldly. "We didn't send you. Please take it back." Henry smiled politely. "I respect that, Ma. I only wanted to help." He handed the bag to Peace and left without argument. When they entered the house, Mrs. Daniels turned sharply to her daughter. Why did he come again? How many times will I warn you to stay away from him? Mama, he just wanted to help, Peace whispered. He's not a bad person. Help? Her mother said bitterly. When a man keeps helping a poor girl for no reason, it's because he's buying her heart. And when he finishes, he'll sell her shame back to her. Her words stung, but Peace said nothing. She looked at the bag in her hand, a small pack of milk, sugar, rice, and a new wrapper. No one had ever given her such things before. That night, she couldn't sleep. She replayed Henry's smile in her mind, the kindness in his voice. Maybe her mother was wrong, she thought. Maybe Henry was truly different. Henry knew exactly what he was doing. The more they warned her, the more he appeared. Patient, calm, and harmless. He would send gifts through neighbors, books, food, little notes that said, "For my peace." He never raised his voice, never forced her to do anything. That was what made his lies powerful. He knew the kind of girl she was: simple, innocent, longing to be loved truly. One day, he asked to meet her in front of the small church near the park. The rain had stopped that evening, and the air smelled fresh. Peace arrived quietly, holding a small bag close to her chest. When she saw him standing there in a brown jacket and clean trousers, her heart beat faster. He looked sincere, like a man who meant every word. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. "I didn't think you would." Peace looked at him shyly. "You said it was important." "It is," Henry said. He took a deep breath, lowering his voice. "Peace, I can't lie to you. I've tried to stay away, but I can't. You're all I think about. I want to be part of your life." She stood frozen, unsure what to say. "I know your parents don't like me," he continued, "but that's because they don't know who I am inside. I'm not just my father's son, Peace. I have my own heart too." There was something in his tone that made her believe him. She had never seen such honesty in a man's eyes, or so she thought. "Henry," she whispered, "what if your people find out?" He smiled faintly. "Let them. I don't care what anyone thinks. You're the one I want." And right there, under the dim light from the church's lantern, Henry took her hand for the first time. His fingers were warm, his touch gentle, and his words wrapped around her like a soft blanket. That night, when Peace got home, her mother noticed her glowing face and sighed deeply. "I warned her," she murmured to her husband, "but I can see she's already lost." Mr. Daniels sat quietly, his eyes filled with sadness. "When a young girl believes lies that sound like love," he said slowly, "even truth begins to sound like jealousy." They both sat in silence, knowing their daughter's heart was no longer theirs to protect. It had been more than a month since that rainy night when Henry held her hands and promised forever. Peace counted the days, her heart always racing at the sound of a passing car. Each evening she waited by the small window, hoping to see his familiar smile. But Henry didn't come. At first she thought he was just busy. She told herself he would return, that he was a good man who would keep his word. But soon, fear began to creep into her heart. When she missed her monthly flow, the fear grew stronger. She waited another week, praying it was nothing. But when her stomach began to feel heavy and she woke up sick each morning, the truth became too loud to ignore. Peace borrowed money from a friend to buy a pregnancy test. She sat on the floor of her small room, her hands trembling as she waited for the result. The 2 red lines appeared clearly. Her eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth to stop the sob that broke from her chest. She didn't sleep that night. She just kept whispering his name. "Henry, please come back." The next evening, when she finally saw him by the street corner, her heart jumped. He was leaning on his car, scrolling through his phone, dressed in a black t-shirt and jeans. Peace approached quietly, clutching her hands together. "Henry," she said softly, "can I talk to you?" He looked up briefly, his face cold. "I'm in a hurry, Peace." "What is it?" She swallowed hard. "I haven't seen you for weeks. Did you travel like you said?" Henry frowned, checking his watch. "Yes, I did. But I'm back now. What do you want to tell me?" "Make it quick, I'm busy." Peace took a shaky breath. "Okay, the thing is that She stopped, her voice breaking. "I wanted to tell you that I'm pregnant." Henry's expression changed instantly. His face twisted in disbelief and irritation. What? Peace, are you serious? Yes, she whispered, her voice trembling. It's yours. He stepped back as if the ground had shifted beneath him. You can't keep it. My father will kill me if he finds out. Tears filled her eyes. But you promised, Henry, you swore. Don't be foolish, he snapped. You think you can trap me with this nonsense in your belly? You can't ruin my life, do you hear me? Peace gasped, shaking her head. I'm not trapping you, Henry. I just... Shut up, he barked. Don't ever mention my name again, or I'll squeeze you and that thing inside you to death. Am I the only man you've been with? Go and meet whoever got you pregnant and stop disturbing my life. Rubbish. He turned away sharply, his footsteps echoing on the wet road. Henry, please don't leave me, she cried, her voice breaking. But he didn't turn back. The street light flickered weakly above her as the night swallowed his figure. Peace fell to her knees, crying into her palms until her voice went hoarse. Days later, her mother noticed her constant sickness. Peace, are you sick? She asked. You've not been yourself. Peace tried to lie, but when her mother's eyes fell on her trembling hands and pale face, she knew the truth. Peace, she whispered, stepping closer. Don't tell me what I'm thinking. Peace broke down, falling to her knees. Mama, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Mrs. Daniels' cry filled the room. Sorry? Sorry won't clean this shame. What did I tell you about that boy? You've destroyed yourself. Mr. Daniels rushed in from outside. What's going on here? She's pregnant, his wife shouted, her voice shaking. The word struck him like lightning. He froze, staring at his daughter. Then, with a roar that shook the walls, he slammed his fist on the table. Plates scattered to the ground. You what? He thundered. After all our warnings? After everything we did for you? Peace crawled closer, sobbing. Papa, please forgive me. Don't call me that, he shouted, veins bulging on his neck. You've brought bad luck into this house. You've dragged our name into the gutter. Mrs. Daniels sat on the floor, wailing, while her husband stormed out into the night, shouting curses under his breath. By morning, he returned with a decision. Get dressed, he told Peace coldly. We're going to his house. When they arrived at the Cole mansion, the compound was wide and shining, with flowers planted neatly at the gate. Henry's father, Mr. Cole, came out with his son behind him. Mr. Daniels spoke first, his voice trembling with anger and shame. Your son has destroyed my daughter's life. She's pregnant. We came for him to do the right thing. Mr. Cole folded his hands behind his back and laughed softly. You came here to disturb my peace over this nonsense? You poor people are all the same, always shouting, always making noise. Mr. Daniels clenched his fists. Please, sir, don't insult me. We just want him to take responsibility. Mr. Cole sneered. Responsibility? Warn your daughter to keep her legs in one place instead of chasing men around the village. That's what she learned from you, isn't it? Go and train your children properly before bringing shame to other families. Henry stood behind him, silent, his face turned away. Mr. Cole's voice grew sharper. If she's pregnant, that's her problem. My son owes her nothing. And if you ever come here again, I'll call the police. The gate slammed shut in their faces. Mr. Daniel stood still, breathing heavily, his pride shattered. He turned to Peace, his eyes burning with fury. You see what you've done. You see the shame you've brought upon me. The walk home felt longer than ever. No one spoke. The silence was thick and heavy. When they entered the house, Mr. Daniels faced her once more. His voice was cold and final. From tonight, you'll carry your cross alone. Don't ever call me father again. My money will not save you. Go and live with your mistake. Peace fell on the floor, crying and begging, but her father turned away. Her mother stood by the wall, shaking, tears streaming down her face. You should have listened, she whispered. Now look at what love has done to you. That night, the house that once gave her warmth turned into a cage of silence and rejection. Peace lay on the cold floor, weeping until morning, wishing she could undo time, but it was too late. The morning after her father's final words, the house was quiet, too quiet. The air felt heavy, as if sorrow itself had taken a seat in their small living room. Peace sat in the corner, her eyes swollen from crying through the night. Her hands rested on her knees, trembling. Every sound outside, the call of the bread seller, the whistle of the early wind, felt distant and cruel. Mrs. Daniels moved around slowly, not speaking to her daughter. She only sighed as she cooked, her face lined with worry and shame. The neighbors already knew. News in small cities traveled faster than wind. By noon, women passing by began to stop and whisper. "That's her," one said softly, pretending to adjust her wrapper. "The Daniels' daughter who got herself pregnant for the rich man's son." Another replied, I knew that boy was only playing with her. Poor thing." Peace heard every word through the window. Each whisper cut deeper than the last. When her father returned from the motor park that evening, his face was hard, his steps heavy. He didn't greet anyone. He sat on his wooden chair for a long time, saying nothing. Then he spoke slowly, his voice low but sharp enough to pierce the silence. "This girl," he said, not looking at her, "has brought disgrace that will live in our name forever. People I once greeted now turn away from me. My friends mock me. Even the pastor's wife refused to answer my greeting this morning." Mrs. Daniels looked down, tears gathering in her eyes. Peace knelt before him, crying, "Papa, I'm sorry. Please forgive me." He lifted his hand as if to silence her. "Forgive you? Peace, forgiveness doesn't erase shame. You have turned me into a laughingstock. Every man I meet now looks at me as if I failed to raise my child well." He paused, his chest rising and falling with anger. Then he said the words that made her blood run cold. "You will not stay in this house much longer. I have made up my mind. If you want to live like a woman, then you will become one. You'll marry a man, whether he is mad or sane." Mrs. Daniels gasped. "Daniel, no. She's just a girl." He slammed his palm on the table. "A girl who carries a man's seed in her belly is no longer a girl." Peace fell to the floor, weeping uncontrollably. "Papa, please don't do this. I'll take care of my baby myself. I'll work. Work?" he interrupted, laughing bitterly. "Who will hire a girl with shame written all over her? You are a curse to this family, Peace. Since you wanted to act like a woman, then you will live like one." He stood up and walked out, leaving his daughter crying on the cold floor. That night, Mrs. Daniels sat quietly beside her. "My child," she whispered, "I don't have power to fight your father. He's hurt, deeply hurt. But please don't lose hope." Peace turned her tear-streaked face toward her mother. "Mama, what should I do now? I don't even know where to go." Her mother's lips quivered. "Pray. Only God can rewrite your story." They both cried quietly until sleep came, heavy and sorrowful. The next morning, the sun rose softly over the rooftops, but it brought no warmth. Mr. Daniels had already left the house. Peace sat outside, staring blankly at the dusty road. A few neighbors passed by, pretending not to see her. Later that afternoon, her father returned with two men she didn't know. They were talking in low voices. When they entered the compound, Mr. Daniels called out, "Peace, come here." She came out slowly, her heart pounding. The men looked at her closely, then nodded. "This is the girl," one of them asked. Mr. Daniels nodded. "Yes, she will marry the man we talked about." Mrs. Daniels' eyes widened. "Which man, Daniel? Who are these people?" One of the men smiled faintly. "The madman behind the market square. He said he needs a woman. He's harmless and quiet most days. Since your daughter is already carrying shame, at least she will belong to someone." Mrs. Daniels covered her mouth in disbelief. "Jesus, Daniel, you can't do this. Not to our daughter." But Mr. Daniels didn't look at her. His eyes were empty, like a man who had already killed something inside himself. "I've made my decision," he said coldly. "Tomorrow she will go. Maybe then our name will stop being mocked." Peace fell to her knees, clutching his feet. "Papa, please don't send me away. I'll do anything. Please." But he shook her off roughly and went inside. That night, Peace didn't sleep. She sat by the window, listening to the frogs croak in the distance. Her eyes were swollen, her heart broken beyond repair. Every promise Henry made replayed in her head. His smile, his lies, his touch. The same love that once made her heart beat fast had now destroyed everything she had. And as dawn approached, she realized something that made her weep even harder. She was no longer just the girl her parents once loved. She had become their disgrace, and tomorrow, she would be given away like an unwanted thing. The morning came too soon. The sky was pale and quiet, and the air felt heavier than usual, as if even nature pitied peace. Inside the small house, Mrs. Daniels sat silently by the fire, her eyes swollen and red. She had not slept all night. Every few minutes, she looked toward her daughter's room, hoping her husband would change his mind. But Mr. Daniels was already awake, sitting outside with a blank face, his jaw tight. Peace came out slowly, her feet bare, her eyes hollow. She wore an old white gown her mother had once kept for church harvest. It no longer fit well. The edges were torn, the color faded. Yet her father insisted she wear it. "This is the only dress fit for a wedding," he said coldly. Mrs. Daniels followed behind, weeping softly. "Daniel, please, don't do this to our daughter. People will mock us more." "Let them mock," he replied. "At least they will stop calling me the father of a useless girl." By mid-morning, the news had already spread across the city. "Daniels is giving his daughter to the madman behind the market," people whispered. Some came out of curiosity, others for laughter. Women carried baskets, but forgot to sell anything. Young men leaned against trees, shaking their heads. "What a pity," one said. "She used to be so beautiful." At the open ground behind the market, the so-called groom waited. He was known simply as Jonas the Madman. His hair was rough, his clothes dirty, and he spoke to himself while pacing. Children threw pebbles at him from a distance until an elder warned them to stop. When Peace arrived with her parents, the crowd went silent for a moment. She looked like a ghost, pale, trembling, her lips dry. Her hands shook as she held the old Bible her mother forced into her palms. The local pastor stood beside a wooden table that served as an altar. His voice trembled slightly when he began to speak. "We are gathered here to join these two in holy matrimony." Some people laughed under their breath. Others covered their mouths, pretending to pray. Peace stood still, tears streaming silently down her face. Jonas kept muttering to himself, sometimes smiling for no reason, sometimes staring at the ground. When it was time to say the vows, the pastor cleared his throat. "Jonas, do you take this woman to be your wedded wife?" Jonas blinked, then grinned widely. "She's pretty," he said loudly, causing another wave of laughter from the crowd. The pastor turned to Peace. "And you, Peace Daniels, do you take this man as your husband?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. Her mother's soft sobs broke the silence. Mr. Daniels' face remained stone-hard. The pastor repeated the question. Peace lowered her eyes and whispered, "Yes, I do." The crowd gasped. Some laughed. Others shook their heads sadly. When the ceremony ended, a few people clapped mockingly. Jonas took her hand, still muttering and smiling to himself. Peace couldn't look up. Her tears fell silently onto the dry earth as they walked toward the small hut prepared for them behind the market. That night, Mrs. Daniels sat alone at home, weeping uncontrollably. "Lord, what did my child ever do to deserve this?" she cried. But her husband said nothing. He only stared at the wall, his pride wounded beyond repair. In the small hut, Peace sat quietly on the wooden floor, her eyes swollen from crying. Jonas lay on the mat, humming to himself. Every sound from him made her heart twist. The smell of damp clothes and unwashed skin filled the air. She hugged her knees and whispered to herself, "This is my punishment." Through the tiny window, she could see the moon rising, calm, round, and distant. Somewhere in that same city, Henry was probably laughing, living freely, while her life was ending before it had even begun. She thought of her mother's gentle voice, of her father's laughter from years ago when the family still had peace, and she wept harder. Jonas turned and looked at her briefly. "Why are you crying?" he asked in a confused voice. "People only cry when it rains." Peace didn't answer. She just wiped her face and turned away. The night stretched endlessly, filled with the distant sound of drums from the market square and her own quiet sobs. By morning, the news had spread across the city. Peace Daniels, the once beautiful daughter of the taxi driver, had married the madman. The laughter of the villagers echoed in every corner. And though Peace tried to hide her face when she went to fetch water, she could still hear them whispering. There she goes, the madman's wife. Far away from the little hut behind the market, laughter filled the city night. Henry sat with his friends in his father's house, bottles of beer scattered across the table. The television played softly, but none of them cared about what was showing. They were too busy talking about Peace, the girl Henry once claimed to love. "Guy, you be bad man, oh," one of them said, laughing loudly. "So that poor girl really married that madman behind the market? You finish work." Another shook his head in amusement. "You see how she wanted to trap you? Now she's living with a madman. Chai, Henry, you're a legend." Henry leaned back on the sofa, proud and satisfied. He lifted his glass, his lips curved into a smirk. "I told you boys, no girl can play me. She thought tears could hold me down. I warned her, didn't I?" They burst into laughter again, raising their bottles to toast him. To the boss himself, they cheered. Henry raised his head proudly. Let her enjoy her new life with her mad husband. Moments later, his father entered the sitting room, smiling faintly as he overheard them. Mr. Cole sat beside his son and patted his shoulder. "My boy," he said, "you did well. That girl was bad luck from the beginning. I knew it. Look at her now, the wife of a madman. God really saved you from shame." Henry laughed again, full of himself. "You're right, father. I don't chase after dirty mistakes." Mr. Cole chuckled. "Good. Focus on your life and forget that girl. Everything about her would have dragged you down." Henry nodded proudly. "I already have." But deep down, he felt an uneasy flicker he couldn't explain, a feeling that destiny wasn't done with him yet. Back in the small hut, the days crawled like wounded snails. After the mockery of the wedding, Peace's life became a stretch of sorrow and silence. The laughter of neighbors stung more than hunger. Children pointed when she passed. Women whispered as she fetched water from the stream. Jonas, the man everyone called mad, left the hut every morning, carrying his worn-out bag. He often hummed songs no one understood and wandered away. Peace never asked where he went. She was too tired, too broken to care. The first day he didn't return, she sat by the doorway until night, waiting. The second day came, and people started murmuring. "Even the madman has run away from her," someone said near the market. By the third night, she was sure she had been abandoned again. Peace cried till her eyes burned. She was alone, hungry and ashamed. Her mother came quietly that evening, hiding from the neighbors. She carried a small basket of food wrapped in a cloth. "My daughter," she whispered, kneeling beside her, "eat something. You're all I think about." Peace shook her head. "Mama, maybe this is my punishment. Maybe Papa was right." Her mother's tears fell freely. "Don't talk like that. God sees you. He will not forget you." They sat in silence, holding hands, until the night swallowed their whispers. The fourth morning dawned unusually bright. People in the market began to hear a strange sound, the roar of engines. 3 cars rolled slowly down the narrow road, a sleek Lamborghini in front, followed by 2 black SUVs. Dust rose in the air, and everyone ran out to see. The cars stopped right before the small hut. The doors opened, and from the Lamborghini stepped Jonas. But he was no longer the man they knew. His hair was clean and neatly trimmed. His beard was gone, revealing smooth, handsome features. He wore a dark blue suit that caught the sunlight and expensive shoes that gleamed with every step. The 2 men beside him, tall, dressed in black, bowed slightly as he walked forward. The whole street went silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Peace stood frozen at the doorway, her heart pounding. Her lips trembled. "Jonas," she whispered, barely breathing. You're not mad?" Jonas smiled gently, his voice calm and clear. "No, my wife," he said softly, walking toward her. "I was never mad." Gasps filled the air. The people who once mocked her pressed closer, unable to believe their eyes. Jonas turned to face them all. "My name is Dr. Jonas Edward," he said firmly. "I came here in disguise to find a woman with a pure heart, someone who could love a man without knowing his wealth. The world is full of lies, but this woman, Peace Daniels, showed me a kind of love that even money cannot buy." For a moment, no one spoke. The same villagers who once laughed now bowed their heads in shame. From the edge of the crowd, Mr. Daniels and his wife pushed forward. Her mother's face was wet with tears. Her father's legs shook as he stepped closer. He fell to his knees before Jonas, his voice cracking. "My son, forgive me," he said, his words trembling. "I didn't know. I called you mad. I cursed my own daughter. I thought I was doing right, but I was blind." Tears streamed down Peace's face. She covered her mouth and wept as Jonas reached out his hand to her father. "Get up, father," Jonas said gently. "Your words came from pain, not hatred. What's done is done. Today, let's forgive and begin again." Mr. Daniels stood slowly, tears running down his cheeks. "God bless you, my son. You've shown me mercy greater than I deserve." Jonas turned to Peace and held out his hand. "Come home with me," he said softly. That evening, Peace rode beside her husband in the shining Lamborghini. Her hands trembled as she looked at him, still unable to believe he was real. The two black SUVs followed behind as they left the dusty road for the smooth highway leading to the city. When they arrived, she gasped. The mansion stood like a palace, marble walls, glass windows, gardens that stretched like fields. Inside, maids hurried to welcome them, bowing respectfully. "This is our home," Jonas said, smiling as he guided her inside. For the first time in months, Peace's tears were not from pain, but joy. Days turned into weeks, and life blossomed again. Jonas treated her like a queen. Mr. and Mrs. Daniels often visited, their hearts full of gratitude and repentance. But when the story reached Henry, it struck like thunder. He was sitting in his office when one of his old friends came running in, nearly breathless. "Henry, you won't believe it. That madman your girl married, he's not mad. He's a billionaire." Henry froze, his pen dropping from his hand. "What did you say?" The friend nodded quickly. "He came back to the village with the convoy. The girl you mocked, she's now living in a mansion." Henry's face darkened. He stood up slowly, his fists clenching. "No, that can't be." That evening, he stormed home and faced his father. "Did you hear the news? That girl is married to a billionaire." Mr. Cole shrugged. "Let her enjoy her luck. You escaped trouble." Henry's eyes burned. "No, father. She doesn't deserve it. She was supposed to suffer, not live in gold. She's carrying my child. That baby is mine." His father stared at him, confused. "Henry, are you mad? You said the baby wasn't yours." Henry paced the floor angrily. "I changed my mind. I'll get that child back if it's the last thing I do." 9 months later, Peace gave birth to a bouncing baby boy. The mansion filled with joy and laughter. Jonas held her hand tightly as the nurses placed the baby in her arms. "You've given me everything, my love," he whispered. But their peace didn't last long. 2 days after she returned home, black cars pulled up at the gate, this time carrying Henry and his father. They stormed in, faces hard, voices loud. The mansion fell silent. Jonas stood, calm but cold, his arm around his wife. Peace held her baby tightly, trembling. Peace asked him, "Henry, what are you doing here?" But Henry scoffed, "Stop pretending like you did not know why I'm here. But I will tell you I have come for my child." And Joan stepped in and said, "You did not have any child here." But Henry said, "That's my child," he shouted. "You hear me? Peace, that baby is mine. Give me my son." The room went still. Jonas rose slowly, his eyes calm but fierce, while Peace clutched the baby to her chest, tears filling her eyes.